Hello again. This is an interview with Gertrude Deegan, part 2. We ran out of tape, so we'll have this. I'm not sure where we left off, but let's start again where you met Dad and you were with a friend.
Oh, that's where I left off. It was
I believe so.
Sunday
yeah.
afternoon, and we were coming home from the show, and so I had noticed this guy before when I was out with my aunt on Thursday nights.
Yeah.
And I thought he was the handsomest thing I ever saw.
Mm-hmm.
And
he really rang your chimes, huh?
So then when we came up abreast of him and his friend, the guy who was with he was a friend of mine too. He came up to me, Jimmy Palmasino, his name was, and he came up to me and he says, "Gert, this guy wants to meet you." And I said, "Oh yeah, what for?" He says, "What do you think for?" Wants to get to know you better.
Excuse me a minute, Mom.
So I said,
Okay.
So I said,
Speak
"Oh
up.
yeah." I said, and he introduced me. He said, "This is Tom Deegan, and this is Gert Judd, called Judd Theodore." And I says, "Oh, how do you do? How do you do?" And he says, "Would you like to have a drink?" I says, "No, I never drink on Sundays." I said, "But I'll take a rain check."
Meet me any Saturday, baby.
No, Thursday.
Thursday.
Because I said, he says, "Well, when can I see you?" I says, "Well, I come out with my aunt on Thursday nights." He says, "Yeah, I know, I've seen you there."
Who's your aunt?
Dot Vargas, Leo's wife.
Leo's wife, yeah.
And Leo's wife and Emma and myself and just a bunch of us would go
girls,
out. Yeah. So anyway, sure enough, I was sitting there on the next Thursday night, and he came in, and he came over and he bought us all drinks, and he wanted me to sit with him, and I says, "No, I wouldn't sit with you." And he says, "Why not?" I said, "Because," I said, you had the nerve to ask me out, and you're in your work clothes." He was in his he come off of work, and he didn't even change his clothes.
Oh, God.
And he was not dirty. He looked great just the same. You know, he looked handsome, but I knew they were his work clothes. So I says, "No," I said, so he says, "Well, look, let me," he says, and he explained to me, he says, "I'll tell you the truth." He says, "I didn't think you'd show up." He says, "And I didn't want to go." What?
Rainbow Bright.
So.
She's excited.
So anyway, that night we really got acquainted. You know, he sat down with us, and then he walked me home. And
So what'd you think as you were talking to him? Were you like,
oh, I thought he was better than when
dumbstruck?
No, not really, but I mean, because I was at a state then that I didn't care. Guys didn't mean nothing to me.
Yeah, right.
I thought to myself, if they can buy me a drink and I can while away a few hours with them, that was it. And so he walked me home. And then we made a real date for the next time, you know. And so, God, we just, every time I went out with him, I liked him more and more all the time.
Yeah.
And he told everybody that he wanted to marry me. He didn't say anything. So then one night he asked me, he said, "Let's you and I get hitched, you know." I said, "What are you, crazy? I got a big family." I said, "I wouldn't inflict my family on anybody." I said, "I got a big boy and Margie, my sister Margie, and 2 little girls." And he says, "That's okay with me." He says, "I got 2 little boys and a girl too." He said, he had 2 boys and a girl.
Yeah.
And so we compared notes that second night we went out, you know.
Yeah.
He said to me, he said how he was watching me the same time I was watching him, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah. So he had 3 children.
So he had got out of the service. And he tossed a coin to see whether he would go back to Somerville, where his ex-wife was, and his children, or stay in Cambridge. So the coin came down, and he stayed in Cambridge, and that's how I happened to meet him. And I didn't know him.
Or else I wouldn't be here,
That's right.
That's cool.
And so anyway, that led into we went steady for quite a while. And he gave me a beautiful diamond, And he asked me to marry him 100,000 times, and I said, yeah, I might as well, you know.
So where'd you get married?
We got married in New Hampshire.
Took a ride up one
We
day. Who
Well,
were you?
the day we went up to get our blood test was a riot. We took all the kids with us. My Rose was just a baby. And Trudy and Herbie and Margie. And they were all sitting out in the car.
And you're in getting your blood
And we're
checked.
in there doing what we had to do with the doctor and everything. It's up in New Hampshire. And anyway, and we got that done. The kids are outside. Ma, come on, Ma, hurry up.
And
So-
you are in getting married?
No, we didn't get married.
Oh.
We had to take the blood test
Right,
first.
right.
And we had to go through the whole works, you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
And
So-
then we had to go back. And the day we got married,
What day was that?
that was
February 23rd.
February the 23rd, 1947.
I don't know.
Yeah. And anyway, we got married that day. And it was so funny because we had borrowed this car. Tom had a truck, but that was all he had. So we borrowed a car. And Jamesy wanted to give us his, my brother Jamesy wanted to give us his car, which was a fluky looking car, but it went good, you know.
Drove anyway.
But the car that we borrowed, we said, no, we'd go up to getting married, so we'll go up in that car, you know. And so we went up in the good-looking car, and halfway home, the car broke down.
Oh,
And we
boy.
had to call Jamesy. Jamesy had to
They'll
come up and
in
pick
the,
us up
in the
anyway.
shit box anyway, right? So,
So then we went out, we had
what
somebody.
town did you get married in? Do you remember?
In where everybody gets married in New Hampshire. It's
Not Concord.
no, it's oh God, I got my marriage certificate home.
Salem?
No. Anyway,
Portsmouth?
no,
No.
it's just a little town.
No, that's all right.
Everybody gets married there. It's
Oh,
one like
geez.
going to Reno, you know, to get
Oh,
married.
right, yeah.
And get a divorce and get married. But no, I had gotten my divorce. My divorce was final when I got married.
Oh, I hope so. You would have been a bigamist.
Yeah. And
So, that was good then. And then you had a couple of kids.
I had Billy was born a short time later. And
You say that like, were you an unwed mother or something?
no, he was born in time, but it was
It was a
only
close
9
call,
months.
yeah.
Really. And
So then Billy,
Billy came, and then 4.5 years later you came.
so 5 kids all together.
And all through my married life with him, it was wonderful. He was a good man. I miss him terribly. That's the only thing I can say. He was a wonderful husband and a wonderful provider. I never worried anymore. I paid all my bills. When I had Billy, and your father came to pick me up and take me home, he paid that hospital bill in full.
Did he?
Cambridge, it was the Cahill House. in
That was
Cambridge.
unheard of, huh?
That was really a doozy because I owed them so much money. I owed everybody and his brother money.
Mm.
And so I was so proud taking Billy home that day
Yeah,
because I was paid up.
So, where did you live with Dad?
We lived in Washington Elms.
At the,
I had moved in Washington Elms before that with Mike.
uh-huh.
But when I married your father, I moved out of that apartment
Went
and
into another one.
another. I wouldn't stay in that
So
apartment.
Billy was born in Washington Elms?
Yeah.
Was
no,
it number 11 or
no,
something?
915.
915.
Yeah.
And then you had me in 1953.
53, and then we hit out for California in 1954.
You drove cross
You were
country.
19 months old, and that
Who'd
was
you have with you when you drove cross country?
Trudy. Herbie wouldn't come because he was madly in love with Lucille.
Right.
And Margie wouldn't. Margie was working at the Hood Rubber. She wouldn't come. So they stayed home. I couldn't make them come with me.
Right.
They were of age, you know. And, well, Herbie, I think, was about 18
Mm-hmm.
or 19. He was of age anyway. He was of the age of...
Well, if I was 1 or 2, he had to be at least going on 20.
Yeah, okay.
So
You were
So-
19 months old.
I was going on 2.
Yeah.
24 was 2 years old.
Yeah.
So he had to be about 18.
Yeah, he was
right?
about 18.
19.
And so we hid out for we got rid of it. What we couldn't carry, we got rid of, and we crossed country
Mhm.
in 1953, 54,
Right.
November of 1954, and we lived out here a year.
Uh huh.
And I couldn't take California, and so I wanted to go back home. And Trudy wanted to go home too, so we did, and that was it.
And that was it, huh?
Yeah.
And then Dad passed away in
Oh
19...
no, that was only in 1954. Don't forget. So your
Yeah.
father lived till 1974. They got 20
Yeah,
years
well-
more after that.
Well, of course,
and,
everything after that I remember.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
lived on Kennard Street.
yeah. That's where we moved from. When we get back here, we stayed with Jamesy a couple of weeks,
Mhm.
and then we got this old shack on in Cambridge
On Pine Street?
no
No.
on Sydney Street,
Oh, Sydney Street.
way up near the Charles River.
Uh-huh.
And but we were in basement rooms. It was just a temporary thing.
Yeah.
Then we moved to Kennard Street.
You found Kennard Street.
Yeah, and then from there
Chicarelli. was the
that
old
Chicarelli was the landlord, and then we moved up to Cushing Street,
one. Right.
and then
Lived on Cushing Street, and then we moved to Watertown with Rose and Addie in their house on Green Street.
Yeah.
And then from there down to Franklin Street. That's where Dad died,
Kennard Street.
1975.
74.
74. And Scotty was born. Your
1963.
16th grandchild was born in 1975.
Oh, 75, right. Who am I
So,
thinking of 60?
You have how many grandchildren?
I have 19.
19 grandchildren. And you have how many great-grandchildren?
I think it's 19,
19.
great-grandchildren also.
And Billy lives in Bridgewater.
Billy lives in Bridgewater, Mass, and
He's with Debbie.
he lives with Debbie. He's married to Debbie now.
And he's got
He's
two
got two
children
children.
and two grandchildren. And Trudy and Rose and Herbie live in L.A.
L.A., California, yeah.
And they have a slew of kids
Yeah.
between them.
Trudy's a grandmother now.
Trudy's got 5 or
I think
6.
8 grandchildren.
Yeah, well, with the new
Yeah.
ones, yeah, 8. And Herbie's got,
Oh,
he's got about that many too.
yeah.
So you've had a nice life, huh?
Can't complain, you know.
Yeah.
I worked hard, but it was worth it.
You
It was
wish you had a little more money. Keep playing.
That's
with-
the only thing. It seems I've been just one jump ahead of the sheriff
Mhm.
all my life, and you take
Well,
right
I
after
take
me.
right after you. Thanks very much. No.
No, that's the way it goes,
Well,
though.
things are gonna.
But you can't have everything.
Who knows
I
where I'll
really-
be at your age?
You know something? I really had a wonderful life.
Yeah.
I really consider myself.
Well, you've had your
I gotta
health.
tell you, I consider myself a lucky woman
Yeah.
because as far as up till now, I have been in perfect health, and I've enjoyed, other than not having my Tommy side,
Yeah.
I have been very, very cared for by my kids and
Well-
by my sister Margie, who I love dearly, and my brother Harry, who just passed
I
away.
know.
And I've had a good life and a good, clean life, and I hope I did a good job on bringing my kids up.
Well, you did fine, but another thing too is to have all your kids
Around me.
alive and healthy, and all of their kids
It's a wonderful
alive
feeling.
and healthy.
And do you know something? Not
No
one
tragedy.
of you ever brought a clock to my door.
Well,
Not one of you.
Well,
Isn't that something to say
no, I
today?
brought you to the cops when my 16th birthday party when
Oh,
Dad
yeah,
got
right.
punched in the face. Poor
Oh
Dad.
yeah, we all got arrested that night.
Yeah, that was good.
On
Yeah.
your coming out party.
Well, I don't think we got arrested, but we had to show up.
Oh, we had to go to court
Yeah.
as witnesses. We even got paid for it, remember?
Expenses, lunch money, and
Oh,
gas money.
God, was that funny. Your father didn't think it was so funny. He was digging
No.
kids out of closets,
Some
under
kid
beds.
puking in the toilet, and he goes in there and says, "Hey, for Christ's sakes, get out of there!" The kid got up and punched him right in the face.
And your father kicked him all the way out the front door.
Oh. So anyway, another person I want to talk about is Brownie.
Oh,
She
my
was a
friend.
big, big part of my life, and You knew her since she was a girl?
Since we were kids, together,
Yeah.
before in grammar school. I
Yeah.
met her up at school, and we became friends. And all the gang, you know, there was Blondie, there was Brownie, there was Mac, who was Ellen McDermott,
Yeah.
and there was Liz. That was and me. We were a gang.
Yeah.
Well, we were the Broadway babes, they called us. And we had that's where when I first met Brownie. So Brownie was had three brothers, four brothers, and herself. She was left alone when her mother died very young, and her father thought she was an old woman because her father made her do all the housework.
Yeah.
And so consequently, she was in the house a lot, and she used to have me in her house feed me all the time. Every time I'd go to the house, she'd make something to eat for me, you know. And we became good friends anyway over the years. And
She passed
well,
away.
I introduced her to her husband. Yeah, I went out with her first husband,
Well, he was Al Largington.
Al Largington, and I didn't like him.
What was
but-
Brownie's maiden name?
William, her name was
Oh.
Ellen, you're
Ellen.
called after her.
Right.
Ellen Butters Williamson.
Butters, huh?
Butters, that's her
Cute
mother's
name.
name, I think. And you were called after her. And she was a good friend. She was a good friend.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from Brownie.
Yeah, how to clean house and how
Well,
to cut
not-
kids'
yeah,
hair.
no, she was a philosopher, so she knew a lot of things good, you know. And she was a great friend. And
So tell me about Uncle Uncle Jamesy and his wife, the one that committed suicide.
oh, you mean Evie?
No, the other one.
Margie didn't.
Who?
Margie.
Oh, Mozzie's mother. Who committed suicide?
No,
Oh,
Evelyn.
yeah.
That was all Evelyn. That was his second wife, Evie.
Evie was.
Yeah. Jamesy married Marzie, and when he went into the service, he came home after the war was over, and he listened to people tell him that his wife was doing this and his wife was doing that, and he was half crazy because he loved her so much, and then he couldn't get over that, and he said to me one day, he says, I says, Jane, what are you doing? He was going around with Evie in front of her, and Evie was sleeping up there, and Marzie was drinking heavy, you know.
Yeah.
And I said to James, what are you doing? He says, don't talk to me. He says, you knew all about what was going on, and you never told me. You never even tried to help her even. I says, James, I swear to God, Evie told him all this, you know. Told him all this, that we were, that we all knew what was going on. I didn't. I was
Yeah.
close to Marzie, and yet I was accused of having her at my house with guys. I was accused by Harry's wife of having Harry at my house
Yeah.
with guys, and that never happened.
Yeah.
Never happened. I wouldn't do such a thing. So Jamesy believed all these things.
Well, what happened? Did Mozzie die or something?
Then no, Marzie had seen that Jamesy and her and Evie had big fights in Columbia Terrace where they lived, and Marzie finally moved upstairs with this John Lynch. He was the one who ran the terrace at that time, and then he and Evie started living together, and after a couple of years they got married.
Yeah.
But Evie, after Jamesy died, she only lived long enough to squander his money that he left, give it to her kids, and what she didn't give to
Yeah.
the kids, she squandered it, and then she killed herself.
Evie did?
Yeah, she OD'd. And then,
No, but who was someone that committed suicide?
the only ones that, boyfriend, what's his name? Kevin committed suicide. Bonnie's
No,
boyfriend.
No, not. I mean, of your.
Nobody in my family ever committed suicide. Thank God,
No,
knock on wood.
someone's mother.
Oh, it was Evie's mother-in-law.
Oh, mother-in-law.
Evie was carrying, he says Tommy was her child. She was carrying Kathy, the second child. And her mother-in-law, lovely woman, old Mrs. Burke, lived with them.
Uh-huh.
So Evie went out one day, and she was gone all day long. Walter went out, her husband, and she came home late that night, and she went in the house, and the old lady had turned every gas jet on in the
Yeah.
house and killed her and little Tommy.
Oh, right. Evie's son.
Evie's son.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, it was a terrible, terrible
Tragedy.
tragedy. When she was carrying Kathy, she was
Yeah.
pregnant with Kathy.
Well,
There's a lot of,
bad times. Didn't you
Well-
have a girlfriend that hung herself?
oh yeah, the night my son was born, my Herbie,
Who was
Lizzie,
that?
Lizzie Connors. She was a beautiful girl, beautiful skater and everything. And what happened is she was going with this guy, Arnold O'Neill, and she loved him very much. And everybody thought that this was it, you know. But Arnold got himself another girl, and he married her.
Mhm.
So he threw Liz over, married this girl, and I don't know what the girl's name was, but anyway, Liz, in retaliation, married this guy she skated with.
Uh-huh.
She met in the skating rink. She was a very athletic girl.
Mhm.
And so she married him, she had a baby by him. And the baby was born about a month before my son was born. We carried babies together,
Oh, yeah.
Herbie. And so Herbie was born May 24th, and the next day, the next week, my friend Blondie, one of my girlfriends, came up, and she told me that Liz was dead. And I said, what do you mean Liz is dead? She says, Liz killed herself the night Herbie was born. I said, what? And I went into a coma. I was unconscious for 4 days.
Yeah.
4 days I was unconscious. My Herbie was born on the 24th, and the 28th the quintuplets were born.
Oh, really?
4 days later the quintuplets
In
were
the
born.
hospital, Cambridge?
No, they were born in Canada, but they were world.
Yeah,
That was
right.
the first time. That was a very noteworthy thing, you know. And the quintuplets were born. And it was right after that that Blondie came up and sat at the bed and told me that Liz had hung herself. Well, I went into a tizzy just like that,
Yeah.
and I just nearly didn't come out of it. But
She probably had that postnatal
she did.
depression,
did.
and you just
She
you
took
know,
the
knew
baby
about-
over. She took the baby over to visit her mother and her family in Brighton. That's where they lived, on Royce Road in Brighton. I'll never forget it.
Mhm.
And she was visiting there, and the whole family was there. It was like a Sunday, or it was some holiday. And anyway, Liz left the baby, and she went into the bathroom. And she was in the bathroom a long, long time. And imagine the whole family there. So finally, her mother says, "Go check Liz, see what's wrong. See, kid, why she's in the bathroom so long." They couldn't open the bathroom door, and somebody got down on the floor and looked under the door jamb. Saw her feet dangling. And Blondie went into detail, tell me this whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
And I just did a complete turnaround, and I almost died myself. It was such a shock. Because she was like me and Brownie, you know, we were all kids together.
Yeah.
And carrying the two babies
So that
together.
was Liz, the one that you were talking about earlier, the Broadway
Yeah, Broadway Babes.
babes.
Yeah. It was Liz and Blondie and me and Mac and Brownie. We were all, and Blondie's sister Bess. Blondie had a twin sister. A twin sister. And Blondie was blonde with blue eyes.
Looked just like her, you mean?
No, Blondie was blonde, short, and blue-eyed. Bessie was tall, black-haired, and brown-eyed.
yeah.
And they were twins.
Right.
I mean, it was the funniest thing. And Blondie was a devil. And Bess was played the piano. She was so sweet and nice.
Like Carol and Susan. Remember Carol and Susan?
It was funny. So that was the tragedy of when I was young, you know.
Yeah.
I saw too much death. Liz, my little baby sister, Mary.
Well, you know,
My
these things
father.
make you stronger, you know.
I guess so.
Well,
So
that
I
was-
realize I haven't had it easy all my life.
know, but you're still here to talk about it. And
Well, I'll never forget when let me see, Trudy was a baby. And I decided then that I was going to make my life better than what I had seen, what I had known. And I lived in Hampshire Street, this little house. And I made that house so cute.
yeah,
And every
your own
time
little place.
when I went into it and locked that door, because I was living with Mike at the time.
Yeah.
He was always out drinking, carrying on, you know. And I decided then that I was going to just make my life as good as I could with my children.
Right.
And I had Trudy, and she was the cutest. She was, look, there's my Trudy. Alicia,
Oh, really?
that's Trudy over and over. And
Well, we're gonna stop this now, and
Okay.
then we'll pick it up again in a little while.
why?
Well, because I want you to sing some songs for me.
Want me to what?
Sing
I'm
some.
not going to sing. You have to get me drunk.